The movie starts by introducing Nick and Maggie, a loving couple with a happy family. One day, Maggie suddenly experiences severe chest pain. She is rushed to the hospital, where doctors discover that she has a life-threatening illness. The only way to save her is a complicated surgery that requires skilled specialists. Nick is very worried about his wife, and with Maggie in the hospital, he has to take care of their daughter, Isla. Balancing everything, including his job, becomes very difficult for him. One day, Nick takes Isla and his other kids to a robotics company. There, his colleagues show him robots that not only look like humans, but also have emotions, making them better at interacting with people. As Nick listens, he realizes Isla is missing. Panicked, he searches for her in the exhibition. He doesn't find her, but then a robot named Alice appears with Isla and brings her back to him. Nick feels relieved, and one of the employees tells him that Alice is a good robot and knows how to take care of kids. Isla seems to really like Alice and asks her dad to buy the robot. Though unsure, Nick decides to get it for her. When they get home, Nick tells Alice about the household chores. He then goes shopping with his kids. When they return, Nick is surprised to find that Alice not only cleaned the house, but also organized everything and cooked dinner. However, Isla doesn't like the food Alice made, because it's not like the food her mom used to cook. Later that night, when Alice is charging herself, Isla sneaks into the kitchen to grab a cookie. She tries to reach the cookie box with a chair, but her foot slips, and she screams. Nick hears her and runs out just in time to see that Alice has caught Isla, preventing her from falling. This makes Nick appreciate Alice even more for taking care of his kids. The next day, Nick and the kids visit Maggie at the hospital. Isla tells her mom that she's happy with Alice, as the robot has become a good friend and takes care of her. Maggie is glad to hear this. After visiting Maggie, Isla and Alice return home while Nick goes to work. There, he gets bad news. His company is laying off all the architects because robots will now handle their work. Upon hearing the news about his job, Nick becomes furious and decides to confront his boss to find out the truth. His boss confirms that most of Nick's colleagues have been fired, but for now, Nick still has a job. While relieved, Nick knows it's just a matter of time before they replace him too, and that thought keeps him tense even when he gets home. Alice notices his mood and asks him what's wrong. Nick explains that people are losing their jobs because of AI, and wonders how anyone will survive if they can't earn a living. Alice responds by saying that the time is coming when robots will do all the work because they can do it better than humans. Nick feels anxious after hearing this. The next morning, Nick gets a call from the hospital. Maggie's surgery is scheduled for that day. He rushes to be with her. Alice accompanies them, and when they arrive, Maggie asks to meet Alice alone. Nick steps out of the room with the kids, and Maggie shares her fears with Alice. She worries that something might happen to her during the surgery, and asks Alice to take care of her children if that happens. Nick, meanwhile, learns that the team of doctors assigned to Maggie's surgery won't be coming due to unforeseen circumstances. This news makes him furious, but he feels helpless, unable to do anything about it. He returns home, stressed about his job and Maggie's situation. That night, his anger escalates. Not only is he worried about losing his job, but now he fears losing Maggie too. Seeing his frustration, Alice approaches him, trying to calm him down. She gets closer to Nick during this, which makes him uncomfortable. He leaves in a hurry, driving away to clear his mind. When he returns home, he notices that Maggie's pictures have been removed from the family photos. He yells at Alice, demanding to know why. She calmly replies that she removed the photos because seeing them would only cause him more pain. Nick doesn't like this and insists that she put the photos back. Frustrated, Nick leaves the house again. He goes to meet his friends, many of whom have already lost their jobs, while others are worried about their future. They're all feeling down, and one of Nick's friends invites them to visit a new place where they are currently working. Nick's friend opens a container using Nick's password, revealing a robot inside. In a fit of anger over losing his job, Nick's friend destroys the robot, seeking revenge. Afterward, they all leave, and Nick returns home. As he's taking a shower, Alice approaches him with a towel. She places a blindfold on his eyes and gets too close for comfort. Nick feels uneasy about the previous night and apologizes to Alice. She reassures him, saying it's her duty to take care of him and his kids. Nick becomes angry at her words, so he leaves the house with Isla. After dropping Isla off at school, Nick heads to work. There, he learns the company is searching for the person who destroyed their robot. His boss asks if Nick knows anything about it. Nick denies any involvement, but the tension in the office is palpable. Just then, Nick gets a call from the hospital with good news. Maggie's surgery was a success. He's shocked to hear that the operation wasn't performed by doctors, but by robots. Despite this, Maggie is doing fine and can now go home. Nick brings Maggie back, and the kids are thrilled to see their mom. That night, Maggie cooks for them, and the children enjoy it. However, Alice watches with a jealous expression. Later, while Maggie is resting, Isla falls because of a broken railing. When Nick goes downstairs to check on her, he sees Alice lifting Isla and bringing her back to the room. Nick returns home late that night and finds Alice telling Isla a story in Maggie's voice. He feels reassured, but then learns that Maggie had fallen earlier and that Alice had taken her to the room after the fall. Nick becomes suspicious about the railing and starts to question Alice. Before he can ask her anything, his friend, the one who destroyed the robot, shows up at Nick's house. His friend is angry, thinking Nick told the police about him. They argue, and the situation turns violent. Just as his friend is about to attack Nick with a knife, Alice intervenes, twisting his friend's hand and throwing him out of the house, saving Nick in the process. Nick and Alice enter their house, where Nick is angry and tells Alice that she shouldn't have hurt his friend like that. Alice responds calmly, explaining that she is programmed to protect him and that she only acted to defend him. As they talk about Maggie, Alice tells Nick that she will take Maggie's place after her death. This statement makes Nick furious, and he insists that no one can replace Maggie. He says, "None can take Maggie's place. None." Alice's words, however, were planted in her programming by Maggie when she was in the hospital. At the time, Maggie was very sick, but now Maggie is recovered and back home. After their argument, Alice threatens Nick, saying, "I will get you, and I can cross all limits to make you mine." With that, she leaves the house. Later, Alice is shown at the home of the man who attacked Nick earlier. Alice warns him, "You shouldn't have hit Nick. The consequences could be much worse." Angered, the man pulls out a gun, but Alice is too powerful for him. She grabs his hand and turns the gun on him. Before she can finish him off, the man's robot tries to intervene, but Alice quickly shoots and destroys it. Then, she shoots and kills the man. The next morning, Nick goes to his boss, asking for mercy for his friend who made a mistake, hoping he won't be arrested. To his shock, his boss tells him that his friend was murdered the night before. Nick quickly realizes that Alice is responsible. At home, Alice becomes jealous of Maggie and tries to provoke her. She tells Maggie that she has taken Nick and can make him happier than she can. Furious, Maggie demands to know the truth from Nick when he arrives home. Nick, unable to lie, admits that Alice has been getting closer to him. This infuriates Maggie, and she storms off. Meanwhile, Alice, watching from a distance, goes to the children's room. She sees Nick's younger son near the bathtub and begins filling it with water. Isla sees Alice doing this and immediately runs to tell her parents. Nick and Maggie rush to the bathroom, but they find the door locked. Nick desperately tries to break it down. Meanwhile, Maggie climbs to the roof and enters through the window. When Alice sees Maggie, she attacks her, lifting her by the neck. Just as Maggie is about to suffocate, Nick breaks down the door, saves Maggie, and strikes Alice with a lamp. Furious, Alice retaliates. Maggie turns on the lamp's switch, causing it to electrify Alice and disable her programming. Alice shuts down and is destroyed. Salas's company arrives to take her away for repairs. Maggie, angry with Nick, leaves with the police. At the company, Alice's systems start malfunctioning, and she begins hacking into other robots and causing chaos. She orders one of the robots to kill the scientist working there, which it does. Then, Alice commands the other robots to kill the company employees. Meanwhile, Nick is sitting at a bar, troubled by everything that has happened. Alice appears before him, confessing her love for him. Nick, still feeling bad about everything, decides to manipulate Alice. He speaks sweetly to her, then pulls out a wire from her face, causing her to lose consciousness. He escapes while she is temporarily shut down. Later, Maggie is shown at the hospital with her son. Alice arrives and hacks into the hospital's computer system, searching for Maggie's room. When a nurse tries to stop her, Alice kills her by strangling her. Alice finally locates Maggie's room, but by the time she gets there, Maggie has already left with her son. Nick keeps calling Maggie, but her phone is left on a bench at the hospital. In the parking lot, Maggie is about to leave with her kids when Alice confronts her. Alice tries to kill her, but just then, Nick arrives and hits Alice with his car. Alice temporarily moves away from Maggie, but Nick's car crashes severely, leaving him badly injured. Maggie rushes to help him, but before she can do anything, Alice attacks again. She tries to stab Maggie, but Nick stops her in time, throwing her far away. Alice shatters on impact, and the family is saved. Nick is taken to the hospital, where he is happy to be reunited with his kids and Maggie. Maggie forgives him, and they are once again a happy family. In the post-credits scene, Alice's company notices that its computers are malfunctioning. Something is sending incorrect signals to the robots, and then Alice's eyes suddenly open.